Hey Joanna, all right, here is your past life spread. So, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out when we were, where we were, who you were, what you did with the majority of your time, your first important day, your next important day, your death, and the lesson learned. Okay, so it's interesting because I'm getting a lot of hits already. In this life, you're a female. And so let's start up here. So we're in the Americas right here. And what I'm getting is that can be, North America, Central or South. And I'm getting South America. And it's interesting because I'm seeing this at a time that is more modern, but not our kind of modern, but more where it's civilization is happening. Things are clean and built. This isn't like ancient times. This isn't native tribal times or an area where there is like a native community. This is more like I see like a very fine home, like very finely built homes, but still back in the day, it's almost like the romantic era, like the time when we romanticize about certain places. That's when we would romanticize about South America being built and being this beautiful place. And I want to say, basically, I want to say like the 1800s is what I feel. And it's funny because I don't know if you're a native or not, because they're showing me, what I'm seeing is a woman who is voluptuous and beautiful, but also like white. Like, if that makes sense. Like, you think of South America and you think Latino or, that culture, but I don't see this person being native of that culture. But what I'm getting actually is that you're marrying into the culture. And I think you're marrying someone who's very well to do, very high up. Whatever he may do, maybe politics or something important with the government, and you're marrying into this man's family. And you're treated well, you have a very good life. And so the occupation they're showing me, this is the food industry card. And these aren't always face value. So it doesn't mean you worked in the kitchen. What I'm seeing is, I'm actually seeing you kind of handling the kitchen. Like, you're the woman of the house, the mistress of the house, and you're the hostess. That's what the word is. It's like you are the hostess. And so you do spend time in the kitchen, but it's to kind of oversee the food, what they're making, what they're putting out, what your guests are receiving. And you have a very good taste for this. So your job is to make connections from this life to your current one. So that could very well be if you like to spend time in the kitchen, if you like to try new recipes, if you like to be a host, if you like the beautification process of giving dinner to people, if presenting people with food. That can stem from this life. And they're showing me a woman in like, you liked white clothing in this life. It was almost ethereal. It was almost like when people saw you, you were quite a vision. Almost like they're showing me kind of like light hair, possibly blondish hair. Just a very fine, voluptuous, beautiful woman in white dresses, hosting and basically running the household. Okay, so this first important day right here, we're seeing a birth. And, it doesn't always mean a birth that you're having or, like face value, but in this case, you are giving birth. You're giving birth to your first child. And the relationship associated with this is soulmate. And it's not that you're with your soulmate, it's that this child is your soulmate. This child you'll see in different lifetimes. You'll be together in different lifetimes, in different roles. So maybe in another lifetime you're sisters or you're the child, but in this lifetime I'm seeing this child be born and you are ecstatic about this. You're just ecstatic, and it's beyond being a dutiful wife and giving your husband the child that they want. It's your own personal joy, because a lot of women back then didn't take personal joy in births because they were more of like part of the marriage. But in this case, there is such ecstatic joy at finally having this child. And I'm seeing a little boy with dark hair in your arms. The dark hair comes from the father. And you're just looking at each other, and it's almost like this child didn't even do the full crying thing that children do. when he came out. Rather, it was more like, you know, maybe a quick cry, but I see him just like quickly in your arms and you're both just looking at each other, recognizing each other on a soul level. It's a very lovely moment. And it's also a moment I feel like that could happen again, whether in this life or another. It's there's something very beautiful about this process for you. So again, just try to make connections with that. All right. So the next important day is interesting because right when I laid the cards, I got this inkling, because your life changed on this day. Like, yeah, your life changed here, but it changed drastically on this day because something happened with your husband. Something, I want to say, like, so this is the enlightenment card. So that means you can see something amazing or witness something amazing, learn something, and on this day you did learn something. You were enlightened, but not in the sense of like spiritually. You were enlightened to knowledge that ended up changing your life. And the person involved is your spouse. And the feelings associated, this is the horror card, and what happens, what I'm seeing or feeling really, is more of like you're realizing that he actually has many affairs. Your husband is just, you know, he treats you well. He does. He treats you actually adoringly. He does treat you well, but that's not enough because you realize that the loyalty isn't there. And so you find out somehow about an affair he's having, and that kind of rips your heart up a lot. And so in your current life, if you have any like feelings of distrust or like just like horrific feelings of what cheating might bring to you, like the, you know, I guess all women kind of you know, don't like that feeling, but just know that it's been done in a past life, and so those feelings may trickle over of deep distrust at some times that may not have to be there at all. And so this day changed your life to the point where it took even joy out of your having a child. And so I see this happening around when this child is old enough that for some reason, I want to say that he is sent to a boarding school, which is a normal thing back in the day, I think. You can look it up. But I see you're like, I want to say he's around 10. So this little boy, 10 years old, he's wearing a hat, he has a white short sleeve shirt and like khaki-ish long shorts, and that's the vision I'm seeing. But he goes away to boarding school, and so you're left alone with your thoughts and with this discovery. And so we go to the death because it's linked to it, that you're for a while you just kind of stew in this feeling of just angst. And there's a day, the day of your death, you're still young, and what happens is I have this feeling of you like teetering on the edge of something, almost like a cliff or the seaside or somewhere where if you just take a step off, you'll perish. And you play with the notion almost to where like your foot, like you put your foot out as though you're going to do it, and you pull it back, and you're playing with the idea, and it's almost like you weren't going to, you were just playing with it because you're so miserable. You're just like toying with the idea, just like, you know, I think it's a normal thing for people to toy with the idea when they're in deep depression. And the thing is what happens is like, it's almost like a wind comes and actually knocks you off the cliff, and you end up dying that way. It's like you were playing with the idea, you weren't going to do it, but it was an accident that it actually happened that way. And so your husband ended up, I think, believing that you did commit suicide, where other people thought it was an accident because you didn't share your feelings with anyone regarding this, but your husband knew that you knew. And so that was your death. And I really do get the idea of that there's a cliffside and there's water involved, and just take that, bear with me and just take that. And then so the lesson of this life is, this is the hard work card, and so we see that you lived a life of luxury here, more or less, is a life of leisure. And so I'm trying to see how this card is tied in with hard work. Okay, so what happens is because of your life of leisure and not really having to deal with many hardships in your life, you didn't have to work hard, you didn't really have to think hard. Because of this easy life, when something real happened right here, when something real happened to your life, you didn't know how to process it, you didn't know how to handle it. and you were trying your best to handle it, but it kind of ended a little bit shorter than it should have. Basically, you didn't fully learn the lesson of working through hard, difficult problems mentally. You didn't get the full chance to do it because of this accident. But if you had lived longer and you had gotten away from that cliff a little bit faster, so to speak, and that didn't happen, you probably would have worked it out. And so in your current life, if you are going through certain hardships and there's themes in your life of hardships occurring, and you are working through them mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, it's you wrapping up the lesson from this life. You're working through the lesson that you didn't get to work through in this life. And I feel like if that's the case, it's not something you have to deal with your whole life. It's just going to be like a little while, like a piece of your life, like not even half of your life. It may be just a chunk of your life, and then as long as you learn that lesson, you're done and you can move on from it. All right? So, there's your past life, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for letting me read you.